afternoon, all. I welcome all of us in today's session, organized by Friends Church Donholm, under the wing called United Society of Friends Women. We invite all of us that are in, and we have our guest with us, Dada Edith Sakwa. So kabla hatuja afanya lolote, I'll invite our friend Maxwell Lwangu to pray as we start. Maxwell, karibu sana. You are our Quaker man, FCD, and you are the first one to introduce to us Edith because she spoke in a Quaker men event like this. Karibu.
Asante sana. We are happy to have Edith with us. Let us pray. Father, in the name of Jesus, we honor you, we worship you, we praise you, we magnify your name. As we want to begin, we pray that you may be glorified through this. Bless Edith, bless each one of us. May you open our minds, open our spiritual eyes, that we might learn more and become better people after this. Be glorified and be magnified. We honor you. In Jesus' name we pray and believe. Amen.
Amen. Amen. Thank you so much, Ndugu Maxwell, for praying. You can see people are still joining us. Karibuni sana, all of us. Will Height, you will talk to Jenny Mercy to... Okay, yeah. Nimemwona ameingia na audio. I thought she ended with a video only. So karibuni sana. Tutaendelea kufanya introduction baadaye, but at this time I want to introduce to us our guest speaker. She's Edith Sakwa. She's a born-again Christian, and she fellowships at Langata Friends Church, Nairobi Yearly Meeting. She's a counseling psychologist, and that's why we have invited her to help us in this area. She has a passion in mentoring young people, and she's married to one man with 2 children. She hasn't disclosed to me the name of the man or the husband, but I think she will do it for herself. So she's going to take us through stigma, how to manage stigma during this time of COVID-19 pandemic. So I take this opportunity to welcome our sister Edith. Karibu sana. Asante.
Asante sana, Pastor Jen. I also want to take this opportunity to really thank God for the gift of life and this opportunity that He has given me. I don't take it for granted that I'm coming back to this forum now to speak to a different group, but still under the same leadership, of course, the leadership of the Donholm Church in conjunction with the USFW. As Pastor has said, of course, my name's now I'm becoming familiar in Doni, and one day I'll be coming to visit her physically. So yeah. I'm married to one man called Joel Bilauni. Most of us know Joel. And my children, kwanza anaitwa Emanuela Sitawa, and then we have Marvel Bilauni Mahanu. So those are my 2 beautiful children, and I'm a counseling psychologist. I'll be taking us through this topic. I know it is not a new topic to us, but I believe there's a reason why you suggested that we talk about social stigma. So maybe as we allow the 2 people who are joining, I just want to pick 2 expectations, 2 from either person, just to hear and see what is it that we're expecting to learn from this topic, social stigma. So volunteers, just 2 volunteers to give me the expectations, and then I'll continue. Any volunteer apart from Pastor?
Yes. I'll say something, but let me hear them.
Yes, please.
Will Height, you don't have anything?
Mimi nangoja tu.
Willie is
Hello?
thinking.
Unangoja tu.
Uh-huh.
Yes, Dr.
Hello?
Logedi. Yes,
Yeah, my
yes, Dr.
expectation.
Logedi.
Yeah, my expectation is to learn how we can reduce the stigma,
Yeah.
especially on COVID-19 disease, as we move on in this pandemic.
Okay. And last, maybe we can pick that one from Pastor so that we begin. Uh-huh.
Okay. I think there are so many expectations, but I think at the end of the lesson, I would, on behalf of the rest, I would want to know, I would want to be helped to know that any sign of flu is not necessarily COVID-19. Yeah, because right now it's like all other diseases have been suppressed, and anything small you feel in your body is like it is COVID-19. So it's bringing a lot of pressure, and we are not even ready to go to the hospital to be diagnosed because we fear even to be quarantined for 14 days. Yeah.
Okay. So thank you very much for those wonderful expectations. So that is in line with what I'll be talking about, but I'll begin by looking at social stigma in general, and also have this opportunity to learn about other types of stigma, because we might be concentrating on COVID, but there are things that we are doing in our own homes. So we'll be able to look at different types, of course, emphasizing more on the COVID-19 pandemic. So allow me to share my screen.
Yes.
Willie, are you able to see?
Yeah, but we are waiting for the notes. The screen is there.
But haijaleta the top the nini. Imekata?
Sasa niambie kama imekuja. Imekuja?
Sawa. Now it's
Yeah.
okay. That's okay.
Yes.
Sawa. So, as we said, we'll be looking at how to manage social stigma during the pandemic. Now, of course, we've been talking more about this pandemic, even the previous, maybe you've had people talk about the pandemic. By this, I mean during this period of COVID that we are in. So it is important first, before looking at how to manage, it is important to understand what it is. So if I know most of us are familiar with this term, but I don't know if you're able to define exactly and know to what parameters can you qualify an activity or a reaction as a stigma. So let's first try and define it. Okay. So we want to look at social stigma, and the reason why it's called social, it's because it's coming from a group of people. It is from a society. So social stigma is an extreme disapproval about something, either something that someone is doing or a group of people are doing. So you disapprove based on a certain social characteristic that is perceived to be different from the normal. So that's extreme. It is not just the normal disapproval, but it is quite extreme to an extent of affecting the people that have been sidelined. We can also say that it is a negative regard that we have concerning a particular group of people or an individual. And this kind of regard makes people feel inferior. It makes the group that is stigmatized to be like minority group, and therefore they become powerless in that particular group or in that family. So the negative regard that we put or we attach on certain people because they possess a characteristic that is not acceptable by the society. And when we look in the context of health, stigma is a negative reaction that we, or association between a person and the disease that they carry. Like now we say with COVID-19, we find that the people that have been stigmatized just because they are presenting some of these symptoms or they have been tested and shown that they are positive. So we tend to stigmatize them or to disapprove them in terms of we don't want to associate with them. So generally, that is what stigma is. And maybe as we think of the COVID, I want us also to just take some time and think about our own lives in our own families, the things that we do to our own children, the things that we do to our own relatives. Do they qualify to be called stigma? Do we stigmatize our own people in our own family without knowing? Because we could be thinking of stigma as a community issue, but it is happening in your own house with your people around you. So that is what stigma is. It is also important for us to understand that stigma is wider. It is quite broad. So when we talk about stigma, maybe there are times we just think about the diseases that bring us stigma. But it's good to break them down and see different types of stigma. So we have stigma that is called, related to the external deformation of the body. So anything that concerns our physical, it is under one group. It is called external deformations, or in brackets, we call it abomination of the body. That is stigma number one. And examples of such stigma are physical manifestations. Maybe someone has some scars. Maybe you find people that are obese are stigmatized because of the way they look. Physically, we can see and we stigmatize them. Those who have different diseases, like now we look at COVID-19, people are stigmatized. When you look at HIV/AIDS, as much as we say that the stigma is reducing, but it's still there in the community. It's easier to talk about HIV/AIDS when you're talking about someone else. But if it gets you in your family, if it is one of your person, then now that is how you feel. That is when you feel the pain. So it is still a disease that people are still stigmatized. So that is stigma number one. Stigma number two is the deviation in personal traits or character defects. So this number two, we call it deviation in personal traits because it is assumed that you acquire it based on your character, your morals. That it is assumed that you're the one who goes out to look for such things. So we don't really look at it as a condition that needs to be supported. So deviation in personal character, this entails mental diseases such as stress, such as depression, things like suicidal. You find that in families where people tend to commit suicide, these families tend to be stigmatized. But it's because it is seen as a character defect. Things to do with drug and substance addiction can cause stigma to the family or even to the individual, and even criminal backgrounds. Sibling who's been involved in criminal activity, the family tends to stigmatize such a person. So those belong or fall under the personal traits or character defects. And then the last one, which is very common that everyone knows, is tribal stigma. So the tribal stigma, these are traits that are either imagined or real on a particular ethnic group with imagined or real reactions towards a nationality, a race, a religion. You find that even religion among ourselves as Christians, there's some groups that we stigmatize. So you find that tribal is quite broader, and it's very common. Like now, what is happening with the studies done, you find that in the Western countries, a lot of studies have been shown that there's stigma compared to Africa. We don't know whether that is true, or because Africa we don't have studies that have been done. So that is the tribal stigma. So anytime we talk about COVID, you know that we are concentrating on the external deformations because it affects the physical manifestation and eventually affects our mental well-being. So when a stigma is exposed in a certain community or in a place, it is manifested in two phases. So we have public stigma and we have self-stigma. So, for example, you find that now that the people that have been maybe suspected to have contracted this disease, so the entire community or the public, we tend to stigma. So it is a reaction from the total population or from the entire family. But when it comes to the self-stigma, is when you, as the person, you prejudice yourself against what other people have said against you. So you accept the treatment that people are putting onto you, and therefore you end up stigmatizing yourself. So stigma is not just one way. We could be talking about the community, but what is happening to the person who is being stigmatized? As they've accepted the status, have they stigmatized themselves? Because that is the key. If you allow yourselves to be stigmatized, then the external effect is even broader compared to being one-sided. So that is how social stigma manifests itself, that it is from the public, and eventually it gets to yourself, you end up stigmatizing yourself. So I know if we were to have time and just share about our experiences concerning stigma, many people will be able to give very different ideas based on what stigma is. But for a reaction or for a treatment to be called stigma, it must have these major three components. So even as we think of COVID, as people are stigmatized because of COVID-19, we want to go through and see, does that treatment contain these components? So the components that should be present in a reaction for it to qualify to be stigma should be, number one is stereotype. So anytime someone says they're being stigmatized, try and see, is there a stereotype in that treatment? So stereotype is a negative belief about the individual or about a certain group of people. So when we look at COVID, the people that have been, either that are being suspected or the people that already have contracted this, you find there is a negative belief concerning this condition. So there must be a stereotype that this is what I believe. People who come from maybe Western province, this is how they behave. For me to stigmatize them, I have to have a negative belief about those specific people. Number two component is the prejudice. So once there's a stereotype, prejudice is the agreement. You agree with that belief that because I'm born in this family where people don't get married, I'll also not get married. So it's like you agreeing with that statement. So it is an agreement that comes with a negative emotional reaction. So when you agree, it makes someone, maybe the negative emotion is like anger. You develop anger towards the people that have come up with such a thought. So it comes with a negative emotional reaction. And from the emotional that you agree, you end up getting into the discrimination, which is component number three. So there must be a discrimination element for it to be called a stigma. So discrimination is now the end product, the behavior that we do when these people are stigmatized. Maybe we disapprove them. Maybe we avoid them. We don't want to mingle with them. We don't want them to access services because of the discrimination aspect. So when you look at this process of stigma, you find that it flows. The stereotype is the thought, and the thought is in the mind. So it starts with a thought process in the mind that this type of people are this way because of what has happened to them. And then from the thought in the brain, it comes to the emotions. So emotions, we feel with our heart, not with the brain. So it comes to the emotion, and then from the emotion, it affects our behavior. That's why we say that our thoughts dictate how we feel, and our feelings dictate how we behave. So stigma takes place, but you have to agree. So that is how the component of social stigma is able to okay. So sorry. So those are the three components of stigma. Another thing that it's important for us to understand is the issue, is the after now understanding the component. Hello?
Eddie, we've lost your screen, eh?
You've lost my screen.
Yeah.
I don't know where the screen is. Is it clear now? Hello, is it there?
You haven't shared the screen?
Just share it again.
I share it again, huh?
Yeah. Willy,
Yeah.
ambia mzee Mlima ajoin na gadget moja.
Wacha ajaribu tu, haina shida.
Okay.
Yeah, that's okay, Eddie. You can carry on.
Oh, ikaenda. Sawa sawa, Edith.
Okay. Sawa. Sorry for that. I think the next interruption. But after understanding the three components, you find that now these components dictate our behaviors. So how do we behave towards these people that have been stigmatized? Number one, we create fear and exclusion. We end up excluding these people. So when we exclude these people, we believe that these people should not belong to a certain group. They're not part of us as a family. They're not part of this community. So it's because of the fear. And the fear makes us to exclude them from the general participation of the entire community. Another thing that we do in our behaviors is the act called authoritarianism. In this, you find that the people that have been stigmatized are seen as irresponsible. Like now, when you look at COVID-19, these people, we are looking at them as irresponsible. They caused it. How could they have brought this disease to us? So the aspect of looking at them as people who are responsible, when irresponsible. When you look at a condition like HIV/AIDS, we still look at them like they went for it. They looked for this disease. So that is the behavior we attach. Another behavior that we attach is the benevolence. Benevolence looks at the people who are stigmatized as children. People who cannot make their own decision, they need to be supported. They need to be given support in whichever way. So they become dependent on us. They have no say in their lives because they are minority. So it is important for us to know that even as we form all those kind of prejudice and the stereotype, we go to a level of affecting them. Now, this is the behavior that comes from what we believe. Okay, so
I'm seeing some people raising their hands. Can they wait or?
they can ask a question.
Yeah.
I might go through it. I might finish and then we start discussion because I've just few slides to finish and then start the discussion. Okay.
Yeah, that's what yes, I've written that on the chat.
Okay, sawa. So what causes social stigma? It is not the disease. It is not the disease itself that is causing stigma. It is not the disability. It is not the social status that is causing stigma. If it is a condition in a family, it is not that condition that causes stigma. It is important for us to understand that the reason why the stigma is when a condition or a disease is new, and it's new in quotes because it could have been there, but the people that are being affected with, they look at it as something new. So when something is new to us and we have very little information about that thing, it causes a lot of confusion, it creates anxiety, and therefore it brings in fear. People become panicked. They panic most of the time. So when a condition is least known, it's not well known, you find that it contributes to the stigma. When you look at how we receive the information about COVID-19, the information was not out there for us to really understand the facts. And that's why people kept thinking it is an airborne disease. Others are saying if it attaches itself on a surface, it stays there for this particular number of minutes. So we were all confused because the information was not very clear. And when you go to the social media, you find those all types of information, which some was just rumors, others were based on facts. So if a condition is new, so that creates a chance of creating stigma. Number two, if the information is unknown, just as I've said, it creates the stigma. And lastly, this unknown, many people would want, even if you had a problem, it is easier to attribute it to someone else. So because we are in that state of tension, we are in the state of confusion, no one wants to take blame. So if for instance, we are struggling as a country because of now managing this condition, you find that it is easier, it feels better to blame someone. So we tend to associate the fear, we tend to associate the blame to someone else just to ease us. And that association is a coping mechanism. It is a defense mechanism. Like you would live, even if I was in school and I don't do well, there's a tendency of wanting to blame someone. I want to blame the teacher. I want to blame my classmates. So it helps you to ease the pain. And that is why with that factor of easing the pain, you end up stigmatizing a certain group of people because you believe that is where it started from. So that is the fact. So what are the effects? Now that we know that this is what stigma is, what are the effects? So social stigma can undermine social cohesion. Like in a community, in a country, in a family, if there's stigma, people tend to not work together. So the cohesion, the unity, the togetherness ceases to be there because every person is on their own. If it is in a family setup, people seclude you. They don't want to relate with you because they believe you're the cause of one or two things. So there is social cohesion which is undermined. Another thing, it can lead to more severe complications. Now that you see with COVID-19, because of the stigma associated to this disease, not many people want to go for testing. And therefore, because they believe if I go and test, maybe initially when we started, actually it was too much because you know the cost of testing, the cost of being quarantined is on you as a person. And you also know that when I test positive, my entire family they'll come from my entire family. So no one wanted to go through such process that people are coming for my family to be quarantined because I tested positive. So you find that because we hide not to be seen that we are portraying these symptoms, the condition even worse. Something that could have been managed, it deteriorates someone's body, and find that when these people are taken to the hospital, maybe it has really affected with the immunity. So it tends to worsen the complication. or if it is an issue of depression and someone is been stigmatized, they look at that person as someone who's been cursed, or it is an issue of alcoholism, which is very common from where we come from, and this person is stigmatized. So if this person is stigmatized, therefore, we find that at the end, this person has deteriorated because no one was willing to reach out and find out if this can be sorted out. Another effect of social stigma is, of course, just as I've said, people end up hiding. So now that we know the symptoms of COVID-19, it has become an issue, even coughing in public. And you know, even without COVID, it was normal to cough. It was normal to sneeze. But now even sneezing is something that you don't want to do in public because you don't know how people are going to view you. So you tend to hide yourself when you have some specific symptoms that portray that you could be, or that could be presenting with COVID-19. So you end up hiding yourself. Another effect is that because of that avoidance, you also avoid seeking support. So support could be support from the medical practitioner, maybe going to the hospital. Support could be going for counseling sessions. Support could be approaching a religious leader, pastor to talk to and find a way of working out. Prevention could be maybe talking to your entire family, support you in a situation you're struggling with. So it prevents people from seeking support. And then lastly, it discourages people from adopting healthy coping mechanisms. So because you know that people believe that I have this disease, so the only coping mechanism that I can use when I'm in my house because I'm secluded, I might end up using drugs. I might become addicted to social media, pornography watching. You end up doing things that are not healthy in the name of coping, because you cannot go outside and look for support. So you end up adopting that are going to affect your health even much worse than the state you're in with this COVID-19. So these are some of the effects that we see people getting with social stigma. So social effects are what we are able to see now. But when we talk about impact is now the aftermath, like now what will come after, what we are calling a post-COVID. These are things that we can pick now later after this has gone on for some time. So number one impact, we say there will be health and well-being outcomes. So the health and well-being outcome, you look at the mental health. Looking at the mental health, we say that if you expose yourself to too much stigma, if you're stigmatized for quite a long time and you do not get support, chances of you developing mental illnesses is very high. And of course, it starts with a simple stress. It starts like just stressed, I'm stressed. But because of stress and then there is anxiety, you might end up getting into depression. But people who are living with post-traumatic stress disorders because of the stigma. Some people, because they are using the coping mechanism, the easiest way to cope is to get into drugs, to get into pornography, or use of social media. You end up becoming addicted. So you've created another mental problem by hiding yourself or by managing your condition. And eventually it can lead into suicidal ideation. And therefore you find that a lot of people committing suicide, some of them will be stigmatized because of one or two things. And because they don't know where to reach for help, they start having these ideations, and eventually they end up trying and maybe succeeding by taking their lives. Another effect to the health is the physical health. So we also say that extreme exposure to stigma, it affects cardiovascular health. And of course, your heart is more important. That if you get stressed, if you think of negative things most of the time, there's a way you affect yourself. So the heart can be affected. You find if you look at the stress, how the stress affects the body, it starts with the mind, and then it affects even in the digestive system is affected because there's the acids, the chemicals that are produced when you're stressed. tend to affect our body. It could lead to ulcers, it could lead to heart conditions. So that the physical health is affected. Then also, because of hiding, you decrease the access to medical services. So you don't go for medical checkup, you don't go for medical treatment. And then the outcome eventually is health risk behaviors that you end up using. So this is number one impact. The health is affected, and the health we are talking about the mental and the physical. But most times people concentrate on the physical health and we forget about the mental health, which is very important because we say there's no health without good mental health. So that is impact number one. Impact number two is the performance outcome. So you find that if you are students, and that's why you see, if you were to go back to school now, I'm very sure many people will struggle. Many children are going to struggle. So with stigma, it affects performance. And performance, it could be in schools, academic-wise, it's because the way the children interpret these stereotypes placed on them affects their performance. If it is job performance is also affected. It could be you're stigmatized based on the process of being hired. They look at you, they know that you're coming from this place, so you're stigmatized. And this stigma can even prolong to the process of being hired and even working. You're still stigmatized to an extent of your productivity is affected. So performance is affected. I've just given 2 examples of performance indicators, because when you talk about an attribute, you need to have an indicator. So, but we know we have other forms of support performance. It could be your performance as a parent in terms of provision, your performance in terms of your responsibility as a husband, as a wife. So many other performance are affected that affect this person who is affected by stigma. Number 3 impact is the relationship outcome. So stigma has a significant impact on relationships, and the people that are stigmatizing you, of course, there is tension between those people. So automatically the relationship is affected. Another thing, when people are stigmatizing you, we say there is self-stigma. Therefore, when you develop self-stigma, it affects your intrapersonal relationship. So you start hating yourself. You believe what people are saying. It affects your self-esteem, and generally affects your self-image because of what you're believing of what people have said. And also in relationships where people, maybe couples are married, inter-ethnic relationships, marriages, or interracial marriages, you find that maybe one person is stigmatized. Maybe I come from a community where my community doesn't approve. Like when I was getting married, the first question I was asked was, where does he come from? So because I think for the lawyers are very, very keen on understanding where this person is coming from. So when I am getting married to a community where these people are disapproved, chances are that my husband will be stigmatized, but I also acquire the stigma status by associating with him because I am related to him. And therefore, I can't really say he's the one who is stigmatized. I automatically acquire the status of stigma. If it is a family where maybe there have been cases of suicide that have happened, maybe the community tend to stigmatize these people. And even if I've not done that, I'll also be stigmatized because I'm associated with that kind of family. So generally, the total relationship is affected. So it is not just one person that is affected, but it affects the entire family. So how do we manage this now that we understand how these stigma runs across? Number one thing is to understand your response as an individual. When we say that you'll find maybe a family is affected by stigma, but the way individuals in that family interpret that event matters. So our reaction depends on individual. So for me, I would define it as a challenge. Someone else looks at it as a threat. So our reactions really matter. And because we said it starts like a thought, then it comes to a feeling and then affects our behavior. You can challenge the thought. You can challenge the thoughts that people are saying. These people who have COVID-19, this is how it is because they caused it themselves. You can challenge and give facts on how that disease is acquired. So our response really matters. Another thing that is very important is effective communication. Effective communication is very, very critical in supporting stigma, and especially now with COVID-19. I just want to give few examples where I've said words matter. The words that you use as you communicate really matters. So you find that when we are talking about COVID-19, we need to talk about for example, we are talking about the coronavirus disease without attaching it to a location or to the ethnic group. But you see, for us, we are attaching it is a Chinese virus. We are attaching it to someone or to a location. So when you want to give information, when you're communicating effectively, you talk about the disease or the condition without attaching people, without attaching an ethnic group. Another thing is you do not talk about people, for example, saying people who may have COVID-19. Instead of saying COVID-19 suspects, we are saying people who might have COVID-19 because we are not very sure. So instead of calling them suspects, or instead of like you see now, the journalists are trying to trace like COVID-19 patient, client number 1. You know, when you try to trace, it means you are attaching some stigma to that person. It seems like you're giving them blame, them being client number 0, them being client number 1. They have a reason why they're being called that, and there could be the cause of where we are as a country. Another thing is do speak accurately about the risk of the condition. So these are just words that we use. When you use clear words that are person-friendly, they avoid or they reduce the stigma. So we don't, even for HIV/AIDS, we don't say HIV/AIDS victims. We say people living with HIV/AIDS. So you find that the choice of words are very important. Another way to manage is to show empathy as a person. Now that you have information, you understand how this disease is caused, how to prevent. We've been given preventive measures. We've been told to wash our hands. We've been told to sanitize. We've been told when you want to sneeze, you sneeze in your elbow. You've been told if there are these signs, you need to go for testing. You need to go for treatment. The information is out there. But for the ones who've already been found positive, we need to show empathy, knowing that they did not look for this disease. And you and me can equally get it. We have no control. It is not that I'm very special because I don't have this disease. It can catch any person. So showing empathy and being compassionate to these people is very important. And you can only show empathy and compassionate by reaching out to them, understanding the condition, and then be able to reach out and offer support. Now that we may not be able to move around freely, you can call them, you can text them so that they don't feel stigmatized, that are just letting them know that it is not a death sentence having COVID-19. Another thing is to create an environment where people can openly talk about it, to discuss, because yes, you have the facts, but you don't know about the rest. What is it that they know? Give them an opportunity to hear them out. Let them express their feelings. Let them express their thoughts, because their feelings, their thoughts affect the way they relate, the way they react, and the way they will view themselves. So we're also trying to avoid stigma by allowing these people just to talk about it. How much do you know? What is it that you don't know, so that we're able to feed you with facts and not rely on rumors? Number 5 is to build trust with the available resources. For us who are not stigmatized, we need to build trust with available resource support systems, so that we're able to encourage the people that are already sick, people that are infected or affected, to seek out support by telling them that yes, our health facilities are they're able to manage. You know, when we talk of our own resources, then we create or we continue with the stigma because these people are struggling mentally, but you're there talking ill of the services that are available. So you can talk well of the available services like the health facility. You can talk well about the religious leaders who are there to encourage us and speak and talk to us. You can talk well about the family members who can be there to support. So you build trust. You make these people know that, oh, I'm not just alone. I can reach out to someone and there is support outside there. If only I speak, I can be assisted. Number 6 is what I've talked about. You spread facts and not rumors, because lack of information, as we said, it heightens the stigma. When people are not clear with information, it heightens the stigma. So you spread facts. You're able to challenge the rumors that we hear. So when you're seated there, you hear someone say something, you challenge it. Then create awareness in the community by promoting reflections about stigma. Let the community understand how stigma can affect our mental well-being, it can affect our physical well-being. You know, most people do it without knowing the repercussion. So we create awareness in the community, we create awareness in our churches, in our own families, that it is not good to stigmatize people, because at the end of it, we might lose this person through suicide because they have no one else to run to. And then we amplify voices and stories about people who've been sick and they have recovered. I know the government has really tried in terms of bringing out the recovered people to talk to us, but us as Kenyans, you know how we react. We end up even stigmatizing them even more. We are not happy about seeing those people because we come up with all sorts of information and say, mtu mwenye ametoka ICU akaangi hivyo. But the reason why the government is allowing these people to come and talk to us is to encourage us, to show that, yes, you can get this disease, but it's possible, you can come out of it if only you're able to observe 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 things. So it is important when we see these stories being aired, it is for the sake of the stigma in the society. So we should not be very quick to talk, especially in the social media, and put down these people that are coming out. Of course, self-disclosure is not easy. Coming out in the public to say that I was positive, it's not easy. So someone has come out to encourage, but we put them down. So it is not a very good thing, because we are appropriating, or rather we are encouraging stigma. And number 9, of course, avoid journalistic reporting that overly focuses on individual behavior or patients' responsibility for having spread, in quotes. We present, or the media, the news that is being presented is done in a way that it makes people feel like so and so is the cause. Just as I said, relating to client number 1, looking for who started what, they're not the ones who started. It's only that they were able to come out and they have been found to be positive. And lastly, we can manage this stigma by communicating support and encouragement to those who are the frontliners who are responding to this outbreak. Because at some point, even our health practitioners were stigmatized because they're handling the patients, and even their own family members were not really much willing to accommodate them because they associate them with the disease. So just encouraging them. They need encouragement. They need to be supported. They need to be loved. You may not be able to interact with them closely, but you need to reach out and find out, because they might end up into burnout. They also might end up into what we call compassionate fatigue, because they're helping people, but at the same time, they're also carrying the burden. They are human beings and they feel it. So yes, stigma is real, is happening. And as I said earlier, we may not just look at COVID-19 alone. I want us to keep asking ourselves, what is it that I could be doing in my own family that has made my person, my children, or my relative to be stigmatized without knowing? And therefore, you find very funny things happening in your family and you're not aware. But it started with a simple thought that you attached on that person because of their status or because of a certain characteristic. So this is what I had for you concerning stigma, social stigma. So I want to stop at it, at that. And then if there are any question or any contribution, let me open the floors for us to discuss. Thank you. Stay safe and God bless.
Okay, thank you so much, Sister Edith. You've taken us through very well, and I believe all of us have heard. We have followed you well. We can repeat the outline the way you've presented it. I now allow questions from participants. If you have a question, you can raise up your hand through the, if you are using your phone, you can just look up down there. You'll see how to raise your hand. If you can't, then you can just, we can see you in the video, you can just raise your hand physically, directly. And then we will choose upon you to ask your question. I'm not seeing any hand so far. We had someone called Mika Masai. You raised your hand before. I don't know whether you left. Mika Masai? Ama alienda? Okay, I can see a hand from Dr. John Logedi. Karibu. Will Height, can you unmute Dr. Logedi?
Yeah, I think you can hear me now.
Yes.
Yeah. So thank you very much, Edith. I think that was a very wonderful presentation on stigma. And actually stigma is real, especially even with the current pandemic that we really have. And I believe we may have gotten it wrong maybe from the beginning. There was a lot of fear. And then some of the actions that we took part in, a good example being like what we saw happening in Siaya during the burial of someone, must have contributed to some of this stigma. And it's really unfortunate that this is happening, because for COVID-19, nobody really goes looking for this disease. The disease is there, it can get anybody. And like many other situations where people could be stigmatized, though in a wrong way still, but with COVID-19, it is a disease which is there. So it's very unfortunate with us. But I think my concern is whether we have any deliberate efforts towards minimizing this stigma. Because the bare minimum I would have expected, like that situation of Siaya, would have been maybe an apology and some explanation that if we can handle these bodies this way, as one of the situations. So I doubt whether there are any obvious efforts, or if you know of any, because it doesn't seem to be happening. You mentioned something very pertinent, especially on frontline workers. And again, this we have seen in other countries where some health workers had to move from their residence to a different residence simply because of this kind of stigma. And even here we saw, I think somewhere in Rift Valley, where the community was not happy with the people who are being taken to the quarantine by the security agencies. And I think we seem to have to leave them just to get away with that, which increases the stigma. And as long as the stigma is there, then controlling this disease will be a very big problem, because people will not come out to be tested. And we know what follows if you turn out to be positive, the issue of isolation and quarantine. So I think my issue here is, I don't think they are open, there are forums where we are trying to discuss this stigma. I've not even seen it on some of the mainstream media, where we are really talking about, hey, don't stigmatize this kind of situation, blah, blah, blah. What we are seeing, just people talking about the preventive measures, but obvious actions towards reducing stigma is not there. And yet we know if you reduce stigma, I think we can really go a long way in terms of containing this disease. Otherwise, thank you very much for an excellent presentation. Thank you.
Karibu sana. Dada Edith, you can respond to those.
No, I think most of what the Daktari has said were inputs, which are very important. And I want to agree with what he has said, that even me, I would say there's a very minimal effort in terms of curbing stigma when it comes from the government side, because giving the example he has given about the CIR thing, of course, we understanding how COVID is caused, how it is it spreads, we are not able to relate it with the process that took place. So many people were affected, and therefore we needed information so that we're able to understand exactly how come these people, especially when they're burying, this is how they're being buried, to prevent what? The information is still scanty, and that's why I'm saying when the information is not very clear on some issues, it causes stigma. Another thing that maybe we need to consider when it comes to stigma is the trauma associated to that. So you find that that family, the trauma that was caused, we may not really know what these people are going through. They may not be just struggling with the loss of their loved one, but the trauma that was caused during the burial. So yes, there's very minimal that is being done, but I really appreciate that as a church, Donholm, you're going out of your way to have these afternoon sessions, because they've been very educative. I've been even attending. So maybe as a church, even knowing that we demand, a church is a source of influence. We able to reach out to the community through churches, because a church has a group of various people forming up a community. So if a church can, as much as we embrace the spiritual aspect, it is also maybe other churches should buy from Donholm and learn to incorporate from the spiritual aspect, incorporate social issues, ecological issues, because when I'm not mentally well, I'll not be able I'll not be spiritually well, of course, I'll struggle. And therefore, I'll tend to put just a mask to show that I'm born again Christian, coming to church singing, but inwardly I'm bleeding. So maybe there's very little that has been done, but we can start Wewe na Mimi from our own family level, reaching out to the community.
Asante sana. Thank you for that comment. I know even the churches, we've been stigmatized sometimes by the government itself, because the person you've said after she was a religious leader, bishop, who came out of the ICU within some few days and she was okay. The way the media put her said on media, they said that she had 15 people in the house, they were having prayers. And someone just wrote, I think it was on Standard Media, they said in ICU after prayers, meaning they're not even stigmatizing the church, they are also demonizing the church to be the cause of the COVID-19. But after Bishop came out of the hospital, she said she had the family members, they had something they were doing, her own children, her grandchildren, and her staff. There was nothing to do with prayers. So I think the government should help us. I believe this is a YouTube channel, and I know someone can come across it. It is very, very wrong for the government to allow even the main house, whatever, main media house, to stigmatize even the church, when the church is very, very important. It is number one. I think it's one of the, we can say they can chip in helping people, in counseling people, and even helping people with food, those who are economically low. And that is what we are doing. Not even Donholm alone. I know most of the churches are doing out there, ministries are doing out there, pastors are counseling people, all that. So sometimes I think the government puts the church at another level. I don't know. They stigmatize the church and demonize the church. Yeah.
Thank you, Pastor.
So let's continue to get more questions. Evilhide, can you check on YouTube chat? Madam Beatrice is saying quality and informative presentation. Any other question? Wilhite, where are you? I'm not able to go to YouTube, so kindly check for me.
YouTube. Ni congratulations to Sheila Miranja is saying following. Makusi is following very well. Florence Jenja is following. Karen Luyai also following. So people have really followed them. People are following the discussion. So that's okay.
You can also ask questions, Wilhite. Wilhite, do you have questions as a host?
Pasi, come again.
Do you have a question or questions?
Stigma
Because if people
iko,
then we will have...
stigma wameweka sana, stigma iko, so at least I've learned a lot hapo ni just to decipher what is there. That is very, very good. I can see many people are joining in, my aunts. So people ni wengi, it's good. I can see people are there. Hii iko sawa. Umesikia hata Dr. John Logedi ni daktari na amekubali. So iko sawa hiyo, iko chonjo hiyo. Naona hata Elder Alfred Mulima is following on YouTube na pia ako live, so it's okay.
Yeah, Madam Beatrice is saying there is need to encourage the infected and affected to be guided and counseled. Show love, pray with the individual and families to strengthen them.
Pasi,
Yeah.
what I know is if you don't know what is hurting you, just stay that way. So usijikimbiza hospitali kupima una homa uambe uko na corona. We kaa tu home, kula tu ndimu, kula lisaka, kula nini, upone, utapona tu kama mtoto wa Magufuli alafu uendelee. Bure utaenda huko kwa quarantine, ukwe na stigma, ukonde. Tabu hiyo achana nayo.
Unajua, you are giving us very wrong information because you are not staying alone in the house. You are staying with people, you are going out there. So I think the fear is to infect others. Maybe work on a very low immune system. So I know Madam will tell us, Edith utatuambia hiyo kama ako right or ako wrong. Alafu vile Madam amesema we need to encourage the infected. I know we know they're affected. All of us are affected. But the infected, huwezi tembea hivi na ukajua who is infected because si wengi out of the thousands wenye wamepimwa, watu wenye wamekuja out tukaambiwa maybe ni Bishop na ule msichana wa kwanza, very few wenye tumeona. So where are they? Someone was asking me yesterday, is it possible to just see someone nasema huyu ako na COVID because watu wako upande gani? Because wakitoka hospitali tunasikia tu recoveries, where are they? So many people are asking those questions. Watu wamejitokeza wakasema wengi, maybe like 20 people wamesema sisi ndio tumekuwa huko na tumetoka. I know of a case of one of our churches in Nairobi yearly meeting ambayo there was a family that was taken to quarantine and someone posted on the WhatsApp ya kwamba tuombee familia so and so wameenda quarantine. And fortunately they tested negative. But after that, when they came back, waliuliza kwa nini mlitutangaza? You see sasa hivi people don't want to speak up and say iko hivi na hivi. So hata like in our churches we don't know kama kuna watu affected, infected, yeah. Affected, yes. Economically we are helping, but mgonjwa mwenyewe sisi hatujamuona. Yeah.
Pasi.
Yes.
So
Dr. John Lokedi and Sister Edith will tell you. Kuna kitu, Edith as a counseling psychologist and Dr. Logedi as a doctor, they'll tell you kuna kitu inaitwa client confidentiality. So don't expect kuambiwa ati Wilhite ndiye alikuwa na corona amereleasiwa. There's what we call client confidentiality.
Hiyo ninajua.
Yeah, so hawezi kuambia ati Pastor Jen ndio alikuwa na corona ndio huyo, Wilhite alikuwa na corona ndio huyo. They cannot tell you. You can't get that.
Because so how does the church and the other professional counselors come in to assist? Where is the church coming in? Kama church hatuambiwi, we don't have members wenye tunajua wamepost.
Church mliogopa kuombea corona.
Ayawacha hao wajibu. Just stop it. Stop there. Okay, allow me to say something. Yes. Thank you, Pastor and Willie, for that discussion. Very, very healthy. We need to know what we know, or rather how we are feeling. So it is important that we allow people to express themselves. So one thing I'll say, yes, we are all affected. That is true. We are affected from all angles. But when it comes to being infected, we may not be able to really tell. And because the reason why there's stigma also, it's because there are other symptoms that present like corona disease. So initially we knew you'd have a cough, the sneeze, nini, coughing, and your fever. It is common symptoms. But now for you to differentiate between the COVID-19 and just normal sneezing, we have to go for testing, and that's why we are being told to go for testing. So when you're tested, you'll be able to know whether it is just maybe fever caused by something else, because we're not saying that with COVID, you'll not fall sick, any other sickness as itakushika. They're still there. So going for testing is very important. And I like what Pastor said. If you're living with a family, and of course we are communal people, we are not living alone. So you don't want to say nitakaa hivyo because nikienda hospitali nitakuwa quarantine. You don't know about your people. You could be having very young children. The immunity is not as strong as your immunity. You could be having an elderly person in the house. The immunity is a bit weakened. You could be having someone living with another condition. And therefore, it is very important for us to go for testing so that we're able to rule out that what I'm portraying, or rather what I'm presenting, is not COVID-19. Another thing that Pastor, you asked about, how do we reach out when we don't know? The reason why we are not able to reach out to people, it's because of the information that was not very clear, and therefore people, because they fear being stigmatized. If there was no stigma and people understand exactly how COVID presents itself, what can you do to prevent? And prevention is not that 100% prevention. We are just trying to curb the spread, because it doesn't mean that when I wash my hands and nini, I'll not get it automatically. We're just trying to curb the process. So once the information is clear, people will be very okay with the way I'll talk about and say niko na malaria. You know, malaria is not stigmatized, and you know very well it is a dangerous disease. So we've heard of people dying of malaria, but no one is stigmatizing people because of malaria. And because someone can come out and say, you know what, Pastor, I have this condition, and they can talk about it. So it is the stigma that makes people not talk about it. Of course, when people come in the media to say that they have been treated about this disease, they first have to seek for consent if they're willing to self-disclose. So confidentiality is key. But when people are able to understand, then they're able to be allowed to come out and talk about it. So like in counseling, of course, we emphasize confidentiality, but we have cases, we have families who come and share. So we may not be able to give examples and say, in our church, I have a client. Of course, I might have a client that I know. I have someone that I know to help me know that it is not just it is the wongo. Apana. I have someone that I know very well who is positive, and therefore with that information, it helps people to come out and talk about it. So if stigma can be eradicated or reduced, people can talk about it very well. Yes.
Thank you so much. Friends, I think we are getting it very well. Edith has explained to us very well. Dr. John Lugedi, do you have something to add? Sauti yangu imeenda. Will Height is on phone. You are helping me to... Who is... Okay. Dr. John Lugedi?
Thanks. Huh? Yeah, I think a lot has been said by Edith. But let me just emphasize on the issue of maybe confidentiality. I think it's upon the infected person who maybe is recovering or has recovered to link up with the clergy, for further maybe guidance and sharing and spiritual guidance. So I think that one we leave it to individual families maybe to link up. And it's true, there could be some people there who have been infected with the coronavirus and they have recovered. And again, even those who have not been tested, chances are that quite a number of people, maybe even including the ones who are listening now, have gotten this coronavirus, they have gone through it, they have recovered, and they never even knew it, because like in Kenya now, we are talking about maybe close to 85% would not actually show any symptoms that you'd really associate with the coronavirus, which are not even typical. The symptoms of coronavirus are not all that typical for it. But we know issues of maybe a cough, a sore throat, maybe goes to difficulty in breathing, that becomes a little bit worrisome. So a lot of people could be having this and they don't even know. And my other take is, I think we need to start also the church members, issues of reducing the stigma. We talk to our fellow church members, because I think it's real. And I was even able to pick out this morning. We had a meeting at the church. I don't want to go into details, but that stigma is real. Where I think the feeling was, hey, if someone is recovering from COVID or was recovering from COVID, hey, to siende huko. So it's quite real, because I think there's still a lot of fear. People don't know some of the facts, and therefore this may continue. So we need to demystify this by speaking to the church members. But let's encourage people to go for testing, because of the what Edith has said, protection also for family members and those other vulnerable people. So it is important, but self-protection also, I think, comes in key. Yeah, that should be able to help us. The hand washing, the use of masks and all that, that should be able to help us actually deal with this situation. So this condition is here with us, but let's deal with it as much as we can, and I'm sure we shall be able to overcome it here. Yeah, thank you.
Asante sana. Before you go, Daktari, because we normally have the common influenza, and from January, from the time they said there is coronavirus, I don't know where the influenza went. It's not there. So people have been sneezing. People have been showing signs of, because they are closely related, and you are saying that probably 85% of us have been sick and we don't know. Yeah. And I know. So where did it go? And why are we not falling down and dying like in China and Italy and maybe other parts of the world?
Yeah, influenza is there, and influenza remains. And as now we are in June, July, I think a lot of these infections will be coming a little bit strong on people. The common cold, what we may call common cold, then the influenza type of it, it becomes a little bit more, especially during this cold season, which we are getting into June, July, and a bit of August. So the influenza has continued. It has always been there, and it continues. And in fact, even other countries, Western countries, are worried when they get into the cold season. Maybe the situation may even be worse from I think microbes now, the influenza itself, and then this COVID-19. Now, I think we've been lucky so far. I think that we have been lucky, unlike maybe other countries like Italy, Spain, and even the US. Yeah, we've been lucky so far. And maybe the reasons are not very, very clear. But I think if you look at Africa will go through a lot of problems. And some of the theories that have been coming out is that probably because we have been exposed to a lot of diseases, and we have also been exposed to a lot of vaccinations, and therefore there could have been some slight form of immunity, cross immunity from some other virus, and that could be protecting us. And some people are also linking it with maybe because of vaccination from BCG for preventing tuberculosis. Maybe it could be offering some protection. So I think these are just some theories. They have not really been proved, but all in all, looks like there could be some protective factor, some maybe circulating immunity in the bodies, and that's why if you look at even the cases are still very low, even though the testing has not been much. But if the disease was so much in the severe form, then a lot of people would just be falling sick and maybe dropping dead on the streets and whatever, or being taken to hospital when it's too late. But we are not seeing that situation where a lot of patients are falling sick and being taken to hospital. So that means, therefore, the disease still remains very mild in Kenya and most of Africa. So I think there's some of those factors, but I think this is an advantage to us, basically because our health system, I think, is very weak, and we can't just imagine even 3 months into the pandemic, maybe after getting the first case, sometimes on 13th of March, we are still talking of having additional beds. Yeah, that means we have never adequately prepared for this, and we are not even ready. We are still talking of maybe 10 beds in Siaya and check the entire population. So our system is very weak. So that's an advantage to us. And I think this is one point I think we feel the religious community should come in and continue praying for the country, so that we don't get into that situation where we are really overwhelming our system. So I think basically those could be the reasons. And then in Kenya, I think some of the interventions which came up with they seem to have helped, and some of the cessation of movement, some of these preventive measures, they seem to have helped, and maybe a number of Kenyans seem to have adhered to this, and especially cessation of movement and locking down some of the populations, and especially the cessation just before the Easter holidays, that prevented a lot of people from moving from Nairobi to other areas, and that in itself actually helps. So I think the scenario now, there are many people could have been infected, and the scenario now is like a lot of people are going to be infected slowly, and in the process, they may develop some what you call herd immunity, where those who are infected, they come up, they develop some immunity, and therefore protect some of the ones who have not been infected, and especially the vulnerable. So it looks like we are still buying time, and the virus is still spreading at a slow rate, and is continue infecting people, and a lot of them will not be showing any problem, but they'll be coming out with some form of immunity which will protect most of the population. So that's the current situation, really. Yeah.
Asante sana daktari, from the medical side of view. Edith, I think we've been helped so much, and I think what daktari has shared helps us to even reduce the stigma, because he's continuing to say we are advantaged. So I think that point can help us to reduce the stigma, but take the government guidelines very seriously to cap the disease. So before we end, I know, Edith, you'll have some closing remarks from what you've shared with us.
Maxwell alikuwa amebeba mkono.
Okay, Maxwell, briefly, karibu tumalize. Alafu pia kuna some chats I'll read. Maxwell mwenyewe ako wapi?
Niko.
Mhm.
I wanted to hear. Thank you.
You what are you saying? You've already
Dr.
been
Logo.
answered?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay.
I'm answered. Thank you.
Yeah. Madam Shirao alisema, kuna kitu alisema, let me look for it nisome. The infected don't have to announce themselves. Disclosure is subjective. The families can help them seek counseling to remove stigma. Yeah, madam is saying that the families are supposed to help. Yeah, but because all of us are still stigmatized, but if the disease will become normal, I know people will come out. Watasema hata mimi nilikuwa nayo. Judith Nandikove is saying COVID-19 being a new disease, and the wave is started with is what makes the stigma so strong, like early in 80s when HIV started. Yeah, when HIV AIDS started, pia watu walikuwa na uoga. So I think napoteza. HIV started, it was that bad with hiyo nimepoteza. So she is also agreeing with the above sentiments on the newness of the disease. With time, we shall normalize like we understand HIV AIDS. And then she's also adding, yes, Edith, and also since it started in other continents, we as Africans, we did not take it as a disease for all, but as for the whites, tulichukua kama ya wazungu. Yeah. So as Africans, we did not take it seriously. We are still in denial as Africans. Unasikia vile Willite anaongea hapo. We are still in denial. It is better the devil you know than the angel you don't know. So
mimi sija deny. Don't say Willite amesema. I've not denied the disease is real. It is there.
To test. To test. You have to test. Yes. Sawa sawa. Kama hakuna kitu ingine kwa YouTube, I think we ask.
No, it's Karen Luya is just agreeing with me.
Ana agree nini?
Anasema Willite, those are true kabisa. Those are my thoughts. That is Karen Luya.
Which thoughts?
Hii ya kukula tu nini tesa akate mboka na nini so.
Yeah, I think the facilitators wanatusaidia kutuondoa ignorance. That is the main point we are here. So yote balanced diet is allowed. Hizo masaga is allowed, but testing is important. Yeah. So I think I would want to acknowledge those who came. Kuna wale ambao tuko wengine wametoka. We are now 11. Tulikuwa around 20.
Around 25.
Yeah, we were 25. Valerie Wasike, can you say hi? Is she related to you, Edith? Mani majina.
Val unaitwa wanasema wapi simu yangu?
Oh, huyu ni huyu wa huyu. Valerie Wasike ni wako? Wanani? Wewe unauliza ati Valerie unaitwa.
Wako ni nani? Kuna mtu anaitwa wako?
Valerie atusalimie.
Hello.
Kuna Valerie Wasike. Sio wewe. Yes, Valerie tusalimie.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
I thank God for
for using my sister to be a vessel to educate all of us.
Asante sana Valerie. Leo for the first time umetokezea. Huyu ni Valerie Wasike Mlobi. Si ndio Willite? Ametuchanganya na jina. Aya, Eshimuli. Asante Valerie. Eshimuli.
Hiyo ni familia moja tu.
Ya kina Edith
Sherehe bwana, mute yourself. Ndio huyo, leta picha.
Naweza ongea tu.
Salimia.
Mimi naitwa Malvin Eshimuli Wasike. Edith is my firstborn sister. I'm so proud of her. She's been so instrumental to all of us as a family. We are so very proud of her. And thank you. Yes.
Karibu sana. Najua nyinyi hamna stigma. So Valerie alitoa jina ya Mlovi ndio tujue ni wa Wayside. Ni vizuri. Okay, Harrison.
Yes, we appreciate Donholm for these efforts, and thank you, and we pray that God continue uplifting the facilitators to continue enlightening us. Thank you very much, Edith, for the nice presentation. God bless you.
Harrison is from Makadara Friends Church, and he's also the secretary of YFP in Kenya, Young Friends Program in Kenya. So we usually request that we join him in our discussions. That's why you always see him in our discussions. He's a very good friend of mine.
Tunashukuru sana Harrison, keep it up. Margaret wa elder, Margaret Simiyu, huwa nakuona lakini sauti itoki. Margaret?
Unmute yourself, Mami Margaret.
Tusalimie tu. Tunamalizia.
Amepotea. Tafuta Judith Musi.
Judy amecontribute sana hapa.
Thank you so much.
Watu wamuone.
Weka picha. Umeenda wapi?
Thank you so much, Edith. It is very important to empower people, and I believe in empowerment. When people are being empowered, they look at things in a different perspective. Like now we have learned about stigma. Try to see that we are not victimizing people. We are not looking at them with negative attitudes. We look at them as people, not victims. Thank you. Be blessed.
Asante sana dada Judith kwa hata kwa kuchangia. Alafu nafikiri tunamalizia. Dr. John hautaongea tena, ulishatusaidia.
I can see Elder Mulima, but now he can't join us with audio. He's been following on YouTube.
I wanted him to pray, kwa hivyo hata faulu.
Hata manage. Maybe daktari ataomba, but I can see Franklin Mkwanja.
Ndiye ameingia tu saa hii. Sasa sijui.
Ayaseme jambo tuna.
Franklin, can you greet us? Tulikuwa tunamalizia. Karibu. Unmute yourself,
Franklin. Thank you.
Hi. You can hear me?
Yes.
Thank you. I was interested in the topic very much, but sorry I'm late and then I have missed out.
You can follow.
You'll follow it on YouTube?
Yeah, it is on YouTube.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. So Dr. John Lugedi, you will be finishing with a word of prayer. So before you do that, I will ask our facilitator to give us a concluding remark.
So thank you very much, Pastor, and everyone who've created time just to join this forum for us to learn together. I also believe knowledge is power, and the Bible also tells us that lack of information, many people fail or fall because of lack of information. So I don't take it for granted that we are meeting here just to discuss these pertinent issues that are affecting us as human beings. So for me, I really want to say, to echo everyone that has said, stigma is real. And it can only start by one of us, as in each person, to take up their responsibility, ensure that we are not taking part in spreading rumors and people that are stigmatizing others, because now we understand how this process flows on. So we can always dispute, we can always challenge some of these thoughts that are given, and we know very well they're not true. So it is you and me to come out, and we may not be able to impact the entire country, but even starting with the community where you live, your family where you live, we'll be able to spread across and reach out to the entire generation. So I wish you well, even as we continue to manage the new normal, because it's not easy. We are learning to live with the new normal, but maybe also to say, above all, we could be discussing as a team, but maybe as an individual, you have specific questions, or your specific people you know that have mental issues in terms of stress, in terms of depression, maybe they're suicidal. Feel free to reach out to me. We can talk outside the forum, just to be there to support each other. Otherwise, thank you very much, and God bless you.
Asante sana, our sister Edith. God bless you too for making time to come and help us to remove the ignorance that we have. Many people are following us on YouTube. I have so many friends. They don't comment, but they are there. Wananibibu wananiambia we are there, we are following, and tumebarikiwa sana. So, and I've shared this with even the whole of Donholm. We have 2 Donholm residence wall. So wako huko wanaona, hata walevi wako huko, na tunashukuru Mungu. So we are making an impact to the society. So you've not just reached to very few. There are so many out there. Yeah, wako. I know them. Hata nikisema hivyo wakasiriki because they are my friends. Yeah. So Pastor Caleb was not able to join us. Alienda mahali na akachelewa. So I know he will make a call. Atakupigia na atakuja atafuata through YouTube. Mlinzi Ben pia wamekuwa na kazi fulani, and I know they will call you, but they also watafollow kwa YouTube. So Dr. Logedi, karibu. Mzee Alfred, naona tunakuona lakini tuwezi ongea. So thank you so much for following. Dr. Logedi, it's now your turn to say something and pray.
Yes, so just before I pray, I think I just want to reiterate the fact that the disease is here with us, and I think it's important for us to follow all the guidelines that and measures that have been put forward by the Ministry of Health, and it shall be well at some stage. Yeah, the other theories, I think those are theories we're talking about, but I think the main issue here is that the disease is with us. We can overcome it just basically by following the guidelines. And within the next few weeks, few months, it will be okay. And this is going to be the new normal. The virus is likely to be here, just like the common cold, which has been around, and other flus, which have been around for many years. So thank you. So tufunge macho tuombe. Baba, katika jina la Yesu, tunakushukuru mchana wa leo. Tunakushukuru vile umetuwezesha. Tumeongea mambo ya huu ugonjwa wa COVID-19. Tunashukuru tumekuwa na main speaker Edith Sakwa ambaye ametuelimisha sana, na wale wote ambao tumekuwa nao katika kikao cha leo. Tumeongea mengi na tunajua kuwa huu ugonjwa umetupatia taswishi nyingi sana, na imeendelea kuenea katika nchi yetu. Tunaomba uendelee kutupatia hekima na uendelee kutupatia nguvu ili tuendelee kupigana na huu ugonjwa. Na tunaomba pia watu wetu wote katika kanisa letu la Friends Church waelewe mambo ya hii ugonjwa, ili tujikinge na tuendelee kusaidia wale wengine ambao bahati mbaya watakuwa wamepata huu ugonjwa. Na tunaomba pia tuwe na ujuzi zaidi, tupigane na huu ugonjwa vile tumepigana na magonjwa mengi katika muda ambao uliopita, na tangu wakati wa Noah, wakati wa mafuriko. Tunaomba huo usaidizi zaidi tuendelee, na tunaomba pia uendelee kuinua jamii zetu ambazo ziko na shida sana wakati huu kwa sababu ya huu ugonjwa, ili tuendelee kudhibiti kabisa, ili watu waanze kurudia hali yetu ya kawaida. Tunawashukuru wale wote ambao wametayarisha hiki kipindi, na tunawahimiza waendelee pia kutayarisha vipindi vingine, na tuendelee kubarikiwa katika hiki kipindi. So barikiwa wale wote ambao tumekuwa nao katika hiki kipindi. Barikiwa wale wengine wote ambao wamekuwa wanafuatilia katika mtandao wa YouTube na mtandao wengine, ili waendelee kupata mafundisho na tuweze kuelewa huu ugonjwa, na tunajua ni ugonjwa tu kama wengine na utapita, na tutaendelea kushukuru jina lako. Na kwa hayo machache naomba katika jina la Yesu Kristo, tukiamini na tukisema amen.
Amen. Amen. Asante sana
Amen.
daktari. Asante sana Wilhite kwa kazi ambayo unafanya na jamii yako, na kwa wale ambao walitufuata YouTube pia tunawashukuru sana. And if you want to help us continue coming live with this broadcast every Sunday, our friends, you can also donate something. You can give to us through the pay bill number 944901. We have so many friends, and we will appreciate if you help us to maintain this, to help the community and the society as at large. So you can write through, you can send anything through our pay bill number 944901, Friends Church, Donholm, Quakers. We are in Embakasi East, Donholm, behind Equitel and Quickmart, hapo hivyo kwa petrol station. Kwa hivyo karibuni sana tena wakati mwingine. Mungu awabariki na muwe na wiki njema. We love you so much.
Thank you.
Asanteni sana. If you need the notes, tutashare. If you need the notes, just reach out to Pasi ama mimi. We'll share the notes with you. Sawa?
Mwenye anataka counseling pia, they can reach out to us pastors of Donholm. We are there, and other professional counselors.